Today on the Coaching Life Podcast.
Like every night I text you, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm at a youth lacrosse game right now at Meg's. Like, I didn't know Meg's had lacrosse. Oh,
they just started up
pickup
today.
Game over here in the Middleport field. And what I mean by that is, you're not coaching them there. You're not talking to their coaches about, hey, I can't wait till these kids are up at my program. Basically, you're just there doing this.
Yeah.
Great job. I mean, you're just cheering them on. That is the building blocks, I think, for getting believe-in. Is just being a fan to them as well.
One day, a couple of guys sat down for lunch and a conversation began. They talked about youth sports, how to be better coaches, how to be better parents, how to be better at developing young people. Not only for the games they play, but for life. That's what the coaching life is, a conversation. And we welcome you. Now, here are the hosts, Chris Stewart and Pat Martin.
We're back. Coaching Life Podcast is finally back.
Everyone's been holding their breath.
Oh, yeah. You know how that goes. I will say up front, Pat and I do not have a guest today. So if you only listen when we have guests, then you can go ahead and turn it off right now. But I hope you wouldn't turn it off because we have a pretty good conversation ahead.
I think so. Tough conversation, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Probably going to be geared a little more. I mean, it's definitely geared to teams. So I would say geared toward coaches first and players second, most likely, in terms of. But everybody needs to engage in it. So I think it's important in that sense. But no, welcome back. I'm Chris Stewart. I'm here with my co-host Pat Martin, and we're in a different room today.
We are.
Had to do a little makeshift setup today.
Yeah, this is the top floor, right?
This is the top floor of Schoonover Center.
Yeah.
We are in a conference room.
Back in this closet that the coach found because our podcast studio is being used currently. So
yeah, I forget. We're approaching finals week.
I don't know why I didn't bring that up because I saw that on our calendar earlier this morning.
We changed it a long time ago and then completely forgot that we changed it. But yeah, we have the podcast studio that we use has a priority list. So the priority is students, faculty, and staff, and not just for students individuals, but even I guess I should say even above the student priority, you have classes. So if a class wants to schedule that studio, then everything else gets wiped out and that class can go in there because that's one of the reasons we built it to. Sure. We have a podcasting certificate here, and we had a faculty member request the studio long time at the beginning of the semester, and I put them on in our slot. That was the time that they requested. I'm like, I guess Pat and I will have to move our slots. So.
It's a prime slot. It's a good slot.
It is. Yes, the Tuesday 11 o'clock choice. Slot. So.
Well, it's good to be back. It's been a couple weeks.
I was going to ask you, how you been?
Good, not bad.
You're in the thick of basketball season.
We're in the thick of it, yes.
How do you like it? Do you enjoy coaching basketball as much as you enjoy coaching baseball?
No.
It's a tough question, isn't it?
No, it's not. It used to be.
Coaching is coaching.
I'll be honest with you. I used to say I like basketball more.
You know, I don't like the sport more, but I understand why you would say that.
Yeah.
I do. There's definitely more in-game coaching in basketball, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
I think
there's in-game strategies that things that you've got to see and adjust on the fly a lot more. I mean, when I say on the fly, I'm talking from one trip down the floor to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I guess that's part of it too because it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm in a little bit different role this year than what I have been in the past. You know, so it's. I think a
different assistant role.
Well, yeah. I mean, a couple different ways. I think just this is the first time I've coached as an assistant to Jeremy Hill. So there's a difference there of what he wants.
Okay, so
even
though you've been on his staff, you've been assisting the JV.
Right.
Gotcha.
And then me and that JV coach Tim Lewis has been together for for years. So it's different, But I think I've said this before. Once you're a head coach, it's hard to go back and be an assistant coach. And I think at the varsity level, that's another. That's another thing. But no, it's fun. I really enjoy it. Just my mind's going 100 miles per hour right now, trying to think how I can best help the team
Right.
get to where we want to be. So.
Well, you're in the first week of the season practically, right?
Yeah,
you played
we're
one
off
game.
tonight. We played Friday. We're off tonight, and then we play this upcoming Friday, and then
Yeah.
we're pretty much right there. We'll continue to play, throughout the
Right.
season, other than the holiday break. But yeah, we're moving.
That brings up a good point. Basketball's a tough sport in high school, college. Either one of those academic.
It seems long.
because you have that time in the middle that consists of from Thanksgiving really all the way through Christmas, New Year's, and that Christmas, New Year's time. Because I know during baseball season when we have spring break right in the middle of it, we got a rule. We're practicing. Every day spring break we're practicing. I schedule a lot of scrimmages that week.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage people, if you're going to take a spring break trip, I will give them a couple days at the end, either at the end or the beginning of that week for that. I can't imagine being a basketball coach though during Christmas. I'm not going to make people come in on Christmas Day, things like that, as a basketball coach.
Yeah, it's in there. I know that.
I'm
I know
not saying anything against somebody that might.
No, I understand, because I know teams were practicing on Thanksgiving
I would
morning.
not do that. Yeah.
We didn't. There's a lot. It's busy, and there's a lot to think about and a lot to do, and it is challenging. I think it's. I said long, but there's just a lot going on during the basketball season, and you don't get that as much in baseball. Once you start the baseball season, you're kind of full go outside of the rain.
Yeah, a lot of what you are required to do, you need to have it done by the time the season rolls around.
Right.
For the most part,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, I never really thought. I guess you just get used to it. That's what you do.
Right.
Of course.
Every sport has its own routine. I'm sure coaches that coach basketball mostly are in that routine.
Right, but I tell you, with the COVID experience, it's probably been easier than it has been the last couple of years, because teams have missed weeks at a time due to exposure, illness, or whatever you want to say, and we have missing games, and then that could come anytime. I know that happened to our varsity a couple times 2 years ago.
Yeah,
happened to when we were coaching junior high a few years ago. So
there's a precedent for that a little bit, and
it's kind of easier now. Yeah, we were pressed the last couple of years, and now it's kind of
it's kind of nice to be able to play every day.
Yeah, exactly. So
right,
not feeling as much, but.
So we're talking about sports. Obviously, we talk about sports on this podcast, but we're talking about specific aspects of coaching and being part of a team, and something that as coaches you always want to have, especially you're going into a new season of basketball season, and we're always thinking about our baseball seasons coming up. Whatever coaches that are listening out there, whatever sport you coach, one of the things that you always are concerned about, that you want to make sure happens, is you want there to be this thing that we call buy-in. Buy-in. And I remember a few years ago, it's actually been, I don't know how many, a handful of years ago now, my buddy, I almost said old buddy. Steve Miller and I have not been friends forever, but when we connected and went to a deep level pretty quick. And Steve has been a real
Similar
father
hearts.
figure, mentor to me in many ways, and I really appreciate him a lot. We've had him on our show talking about his book, and now he's got another book. We still need to get him on to talk about
that's right.
the Tomcat way, just some of the stories of how Trimble has had so much success over the years. But I remember one of the things that Steve told me years ago was that he likes to focus not as much on buy-in, but on believe in. And he says that believe in really goes to a deeper level, he thinks. And when you can get people to believe in what you're doing, who you are, and what you're doing, and what your program is about, what your vision is for the program, then you obviously have buy-in. You might be able to get people to buy in, but they still may not believe in. And there's a difference. I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the difference and how maybe as coaches we could try to cultivate that in our teams.
Go ahead, Coach.
Because it's you're right. Yeah, Steve Miller, can we give you a call right now while we're recording and get this?
It's kind of like one of those things, like you know it when you see it. Buy-in has a little bit more of a negative tense to it.
Yeah,
Because
I'd say
it's like more of a an exchange of something.
yeah. How can I How can I persuade you?
Right. And so that you're from that perspective, the coach it's almost like the coach is trying to convince, which they are.
Yeah.
If they have their priorities straight, but believe, I would say. Well, how about this, Coach? How about this? Buy-in is more. Buying into something is more of a singular action, something you do one time, maybe.
Yeah.
And believe is more of a living action. It's there's motivation behind it. There's encouragement in there. It gives you a stronger why, so to speak,
Yeah.
of what you're doing out there. I like that. That's an interesting comparison there that Coach Miller gives.
It is, and I had to pause and think about it quite a bit to try to discern what's the difference. What's
Yeah.
the difference between buying and believing? And there is. I think there is some difference. And I actually thought about this past week, about a week ago, since the day you and I were recording. Ohio University football team won the MAC East, and they're now playing for the MAC championship this weekend up in Detroit. And of course, they played a lot of videos after on the social media page for Ohio football. And by the way, there is one Ohio team that's going to be playing for a championship.
Let's not get too in front of ourselves here.
Don't get too ahead of ourselves.
I still think,
I should say one because they're playing Toledo, so one team with Ohio in the name is what I should say. Actually,
I still think the Buckeyes are going to the
Yeah,
playoffs.
You're right. I think there's a good chance that USC loses their conference championship. And
I think they
Ohio sneaks
go
in.
anyway.
Ohio State sneaks in.
I think they're going anyway.
People will. Can you imagine the crying all around the nation if people?
The Buckeyes have a better resume than USC.
Yeah,
now, if USC actually,
if they stay.
if they win their conference, you just change my mind.
Yeah,
That changes the resume.
And
if you have
know
a
what?
conference
Honestly,
championship,
and you know what? Honestly, this year, those four teams for the first time in a long time will be four different conference champions.
but you
potentially.
can't. That's not rationale, though. You can't say it that they can't come out and say that as their
Of course
their
not.
reasoning.
No.
But I bet you you're right. If USC wins
would
their
make-
championship, that's a championship on their resume.
If human beings are creating this, right, in your mind,
Sure.
right.
Well, let's be honest.
You're like, here's.
It's going to bring more money
Yes.
into everyone involved. So it's a good thing for them to look for. But yeah, I think you're right. I never thought of that for some reason. It escaped my mind. I was just looking at their current
Right.
schedules and what they've done.
Everything's ended now.
But it's not going to. USC has a chance to be a champion, and Ohio State doesn't.
I tell you what stinks about that. If USC is if you didn't have that game to play, you'd be in. There is no chance. There is no negative to.
Well, see, now I think the opposite. I think
you think this is going to.
I think this will put them in above Ohio
Gotcha.
State.
You don't think they would make it? Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Who does USC play?
Utah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I wouldn't say it's a give me. by any
Actually,
means.
didn't Utah beat them earlier in the year?
That might be their loss. I don't know. I have to look back through that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Sorry.
One of the cool videos, one of the cool videos that Ohio football social media person played, and I don't know. This might be one of my students who recorded this because he does a lot of recordings for their highlight videos, and I get to see him on the sidelines, look through the lens there, of the camera, and see what he's doing. But Kai Caesar, dominant defensive lineman, at the end of the game, he said something. He said he had the game ball, and he said this game ball is going to go to Coach Alvin, and there's a reason why. And I just want to try playing this. It's not going to sound as good as some of our normal videos do, but I'm going to give us a shot here. Let's give it a shot.
This is the game ball. We're going to present it in the locker room for Coach. He deserved it. He deserved it. Hey, rise up. That's the brick. That's what we about. You know what I'm saying? We couldn't do none of this without Coach, man. We couldn't do it without Coach. Hey, July, I give you a little story. In July, I texted him. I'm like, man, I believe in everything you do. I'm behind you 100%, and we're going to win this championship. You know what I'm saying? I sent him the same text yesterday. I was like, hey, Coach, let's go get it. And he's like, man, he sent the hard eye, he sent the hard thing. You know, he sent all them emojis, man. But, man, hey, the game bugs are the coach, man.
So a pretty cool moment there for Coach Alvin. Congratulations to him also, by the way. You talk about, well, here's the thing. Kai Caesar, say, texted him in July.
Yep.
So the season before, last year, Ohio University was 3-9. Did they win 3 games last year?
I don't remember.
I'll have to look that up. It was
Yeah, they were.
it was minimal.
Yep.
Right? Minimal. This year they're sitting at 9-3, and playing for the MAC championship. Something actually that Coach Solich didn't do.
Yeah, right.
in his time.
And I would say,
I mean, he played for it, but if they accomplish it, and
Right.
it's something that hasn't been done since 1968.
I think it's even more of a testament to the program that Coach Albin's built, that they're able to, win that game with their second string quarterback.
That's true.
And not just a second string quarterback, but a quarterback that plays the game completely different than their
Right.
first string quarterback.
They've had to restructure that offense a little bit.
Absolutely. And those are the types of things, being able to overcome losses like that, losing Curtis Rourke, like in that point in the season, and being able to come back and still get a big win, that shows you that, that team they believe in what they're doing, because that's a team situation. That's a team victory there that they come out with.
Oh,
And,
it is.
CJ Harris played phenomenal. I mean, he played really well.
Yeah.
But that goes to prove that they've definitely bought in, but even more so, they believe in what's going on there.
Yeah, I love the fact that that's exactly the way Kai said it. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe everything you're doing. And somebody might say, and you know what? You might actually say this. Wow, he might have been the only person who did in July.
Might have.
Right.
But,
Well, no. There's others on that team that did. But there's a reason. Like, outside of that locker room, it doesn't – and here's the thing. A lot of us sitting outside of a locker room might look and say, how can you believe in anything these guys? I mean, they didn't win hardly any games, right?
Yeah.
And they looked awful losing. I mean, not they didn't just lose last year; they looked bad losing,
Yeah.
right? And something, however, caused not just that one player. You can't win with one player. An entire team, an entire group of players. Maybe not everybody in the locker room, but an entire group of players enough to believe in what they were doing to go out there and actually accomplish something pretty significant this year.
Right. I think it helps when you've got leaders and impact players
Yeah.
that are willing to stand up and say, hey, this is going to work. Let's do what we have to do.
Yeah.
So.
But there is a difference, I think. Like, when you think about buying in to something, and this is true of sports, our athletic teams. It's also true of any job that you might have. If you're a boss and if you're a leader in any organization,
absolutely, right.
You want to get people to buy in or believe in what you're doing. Buy in or believe in. Let's contrast the two. When I think of buy in, I think, okay, getting, like you said, it's sometimes temporary. Getting other people to agree with an idea or a concept that you're presenting, like a vision or something, or a mission. And then if they agree with it, then they're going to support, they will implement the actions necessary to carry that idea out, right? And so you're like, we got buy-in. They're doing it. And when a person is trying to buy into something, like something new, for example, something that they haven't bought into before, they might say something like, hey, I'd buy into that I'd buy into your plan if I knew for sure that it was going to, fill in the blank or whatever. I'd buy in if I got to see that it's going to work.
Right.
I think it's one of the big differences is that buy-in kind of requires proof. It requires a little bit of proof. If you want to get somebody to buy in, like you say, hey, look at how successful we've been in the past.
Yeah.
Look at what we've done in the past. And I think about, like, what proof did Kai Caesar have to text Coach Alvin and say, I believe in everything you're doing.
Right.
Like, if wins and losses is what's going to, and let's be honest, we know there was pressure on this staff this year to win.
Sure,
right,
right.
And that was very obvious and very evident, and it trickles down as well. And so, if wins and losses is what you're talking about, what proof did he have?
Sure.
Why would you buy in, right?
Right. I mean, we're not in the practices, we're not in the locker room,
Right.
in the meetings and things like that. I mean, obviously a lot of that comes from there.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're looking at the production, this is what we did last year.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
So you'd almost be inclined to go the other way.
Yeah, if you're talking about buying something, you might look into exchange it, trade.
Yeah,
something
exactly.
else.
Right. Yeah.
So then okay, let's look at the other way then. If believe in,
Yeah.
Steve, I like Steve Miller's words. Believe in. I mean, I'm sure other people have said it. But we're gonna attribute this to Steve.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't require proof, then that must mean that a person, then a player, a person who's in your organization, that must mean they choose to believe in your ideas, your plan, your concepts, your vision, regardless of proof. And not only regardless of proof, but despite
The lack
proof
of it, yeah.
that
Or
shows
the contrary.
that shows
Right,
that your
yeah.
belief could be wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? That's a huge difference.
Takes trust.
Yes. Yeah.
I think when we talked about having this discussion today, that was the idea, the concept that was floating around in my mind is how do you get people to believe? And I think it starts there with trust, and there's no doubt that based on the words there that he used in his post game speech there, that Kai Caesar has a lot of trust in Coach Albin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's almost like you would be saying in that sense, hey, okay, believe in means I don't see it yet.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that gives me any evidence that this is going to take place, but I'm all in.
Yep.
I'm all in, and I'm willing to put my reputation on the line.
Right.
For this.
Yeah, and if you think about it from a very fundamental level, coaches, we build players up and we tear players down. We're constantly giving criticism, we're giving praise, and none of those things are beneficial if the players don't believe what you're saying. If they don't trust what you're saying. So I guess that's the question. How do you get to that point?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Well, because you said it requires trust to build believe in. So then you could back that up even further. Okay, how do you get trust?
Exactly.
How do you get trust in your organization and on your team?
Yep.
Basically, how do you get others to believe?
Right.
So there's our question to answer today.
Yeah.
How do we get others? How do we get teammates, team members to believe in?
Mm-hmm.
Just believe in. Period.
Yep.
Right? How we get that?
Yep. And this is where I stop talking, and Coach Stewart is going to give us the answers to this question so that we know.
I'll tell you, man.
do it.
You look at your program. You know the answer. We all know that it has to be nurtured. It's not going to just happen. I mean, before believe in is ever needed on your teams, you better have nurtured it.
Yeah.
Like you can't just show up and say, "Here's what we got. Here's our plan. Here's our vision. Now let's go and do it."
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And it's not. That's sometimes not easy for a coach that just got hired today.
It isn't.
And they got to step out there and coach tomorrow.
Nope, it's really difficult
Uh-huh.
because there's a lot of variables involved in that. That's what I think you said it a few years ago when you took over the reins at Eastern, how grateful you were for the senior class that you had and the leaders on that team.
Yeah.
That how quickly they got behind you and supported you in what you're trying to do. That's I had the same thing.
Yep.
In my first year at Megs last year, I had a great senior group that probably wouldn't have been expected to give me the trust that they gave me.
Can I say something about that though?
Sure.
I think you and to an extent, I guess with one person, I maybe two, actually probably just one. To an extent, I had the same thing as well. But for you, like you are invested in the community that you coach in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just something that you invested in last year for the first time as
Sure.
a coach, but you have been invested in these athletes and in their families and in their and who they are and helping them. And so basically, the reason I would say you got that believe in from day one is because of this very thing. Is you did nurture it already, not as their head coach until whatever day you were hired, and it became even more like you then it was like, oh yeah, now I can tell you what to do and you're going to do it, right? But
Right.
before it was
Got
like,
the role power.
I know Pat loves me. I know he's concerned. I know he's concerned for me. I know he would drop everything and help me. I know that's there. And it's like you step into a position, and yeah, it's a new role for you. It's a new role for them to see you in. It's a new relationship for them to have with you. But the reason that believe in, I think, was there was because you nurtured that trust and that relationship before that. And I say, and I was really excited to see those kids respond to me a couple years ago when I was brand new and I stepped on the scene. But the reality was, I had one player on that team that I had 4 years of relationship with before that day, and he believed in me, and he was enough of a outspoken leader. He was their leader. He was the leader among leaders, if they believed, if they saw him say, he believes in this guy, then it made it easy for the other ones to jump on board.
That's a
as
great
well.
point. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of comes back. I mean, if you have leaders that have trust in you, that's good. And yeah, you do have to nurture that.
Yeah.
That's why youth programs and high school
Right.
sports, I think, are so important.
That's what you were involved in all those years.
Yeah.
You were involved with these kids as they're developing.
Yeah, you want to get involved in that. You want to, and it's not just a matter of going down and saying, "Hey, I want you to run your practices like this. I want you to teach kids how to swing like this and throw out this." It's not really. I mean, it's beneficial if you
Sure.
can do that a little bit,
But that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, we're talking about opportunities to let those kids and those parents. And I would say both of those are very important. Let both of them people, those types of people know that you care about them.
And you know how I've seen you do that? You're really good at this. You're so much better at this than I am. I mean, I try to. You go to every daggone sporting event that Megs has.
I try.
Like, I don't know what else your family does besides go to sporting events.
Oh boy, Chassie's probably gonna have something to say about this one.
She's like, oh yeah, we could be doing other things, I guess, right? But no, I mean, you do, like every night I text you, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm at a youth lacrosse game right now at Megs. Like, I didn't know Megs had lacrosse. Oh,
They just started
it's
it
this
up
pickup
today.
game over here in the Middleport field, and I'm watching them play because these are kids that might be on my team someday. But no, you are you, and what I mean by that is,
but
you're not coaching them there. You're not talking to their coaches about, hey, I can't wait till these kids are up at my program. Basically, you're just there doing this.
Yeah.
Great job. I mean, you're just cheering them on.
Yeah.
Just a fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the that is the building blocks, I think, for getting believe in is being a fan to them as well. Not just being their coach, but really them knowing, you know what? They got my back.
Yeah.
They love me and they want the best for me.
Want the best for me, yeah.
Yeah.
If your coach wants you to succeed as an individual, that definitely helps with the trust. I think a lot of times it's all relationship based stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean it is. I think if a player doesn't think that a coach has their best interest at heart, that's a problem. That's going to be a problem for that player and for that coach. And you see it at every level of sports. You see it in the pros, and it can change from
Sure.
as teams change and things like that. Coaches fall out of favor and so on and so forth. So
We should probably say also that it's not always the coach's fault.
absolutely not.
I mean, right? There are times
No.
when a player might have an issue with a coach and doesn't think that the coach has his best interests in mind, when the coach absolutely does.
Sure, absolutely.
But something has happened to cause that rift, and it may or may not be within your control as a coach to fix that.
Sure. Well, I think a fallacy is that coaches are against players.
Oh, absolutely.
And coaches want to win, especially.
Which means that they're for you. Well, even though it might seem like they're against you.
Right. I mean, they're going to put the players on the court, on the field.
Because they're assuming you want to win too.
Right, that they think is going to give the team,
Yes.
the best
Yes.
chance to win. And I think what happens is because the coach doesn't think that certain players, provide that, the players and begin to think, well, the coach doesn't like me.
He's against me.
And,
Yeah.
that's, you're talking about separate things there. You're talking
Sure.
about, but that's hard for a player to understand sometimes too, especially
So-
based on their maturity.
So let's stay in this belief in vein then. That must mean that believe in, if you have believe in on your team, it doesn't mean that believe in removes all obstacles and
Absolutely
problems.
not, no.
Right? In fact, it may create even more problems and
Right.
obstacles.
Yeah, but I think the believe in is what helps you get through those obstacles. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not you're never going to go a season without challenges.
Yeah.
Well, if you do, you're not going to. There's no success in that. I
Oh,
can
of
almost
course.
guarantee it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Success is hard. It's difficult to do. You got to earn it. You got to deserve it to get it. So the reason that you have a program, have a platform, a concept, whatever you want to call it, that the team can believe in is to help you get through the challenges that you're going through. It's not always going to equate to success either, right? But it'll help you get through that as well.
Yeah.
So you're prepared for that. At the Browns, I listened to Coach Stefanski's post-game speech the other day, and he said,
On your way home from Cleveland Stadium?
No, it was actually I got back after
You
I
were
was
there,
home.
though,
Yeah.
weren't you?
Where's that?
I
I
saw
was
a good
there.
game.
It was the best game I've ever seen live.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I've never
I
seen.
mean, they did play well.
Well, it was just comeback. And
It was an overtime game. There were like 3 or 4 overtime games.
did you see what happened?
Yes.
Our tight end caught the ball left-handed, one-handed.
Yeah.
People were filing out of the stadium about 2 minutes and 15 seconds before the 2-minute warning. The couple next to us said,
They're not real.
"Come on." Well, I won't say that, but she said, "Come on, honey, this game's over. We've got 2:15 and the Buccaneers have the ball, so we got to go."
That means Tom Brady's.
That's right,
Yeah.
and he should really, honestly, there was opportunities there. They should have. They had a chance to do it, but oh yeah, it was great. Even with a limited crowd, so there's probably still 50,000 people in the stadium, but
It's
at
unreal to me.
least.
They sell out.
But,
they could be 0-10 and
Oh,
do
yeah,
something else.
that's what Josh Grid said there at the stadium. We're there, rain or shine. It was raining, but it just exploded, man. It was just it's so fun when things are going well in Cleveland. It really is. But Stefanski said setbacks prepare you for comebacks. You can't have a comeback if you don't have a
Yeah,
setback.
that's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I think as a coach, someone that's trying to build a program, you want to build an infrastructure just for that. How are we going to handle setbacks? If your culture can handle setbacks, I think that's the kind of culture that your players, your families believe in.
Yeah. So, let me give you an aside here.
Okay.
Let's step aside from that just for 1 second.
All right.
Cleveland has the best game of their year,
Yeah.
best game you've ever seen them play live,
Yeah.
and this is the week
Yep.
that Watson comes back.
Right.
Do you play him?
Yeah, I play him. I am going to miss rooting for Jacoby Brissett.
know.
I love
He's
the,
fun to
I
root
love
for.
the man.
Yeah.
He had a pancake block on
I know.
the 30-yard run.
Yeah.
And I jumped up out of my seat and cheered that block more than I cheered the touchdown.
Baker did that too.
He did.
You saw Baker do that all the
He
time.
did, but I like Jacoby Brissett better than I like Baker just because of his mentality, just because of his approach. He's business.
His accuracy.
Well, he threw the ball well.
More accurate ball.
Didn't take a lot of doesn't make a lot of big mistakes. That's the difference with. But he's not going to make big plays a lot of times either. Like that touchdown in the end zone to tie the game to send us in overtime was a great catch.
Yes, it was.
But you got to have faith in your receiver. And
There's going to be a lot of eyes on the Browns this week, I think.
I don't think. I would expect it to go slow. I think it's going to take him a while to get back.
Well,
in
it's
the swing of things.
first game for him, right?
But the bottom line is this, and Deshaun Watson has elite ability.
Yeah.
And Jacoby Brissett doesn't have that. I mean, I say that as I was listening to fans up above me complain about players making the money that they made. And, I'm like, well, go down there and see what you got, fellas. But
you should have practiced more when you were a kid.
So our tight end that made the catch in the end zone dropped a ball earlier in the game, and someone said $40 million. We pay him $40 million. I can do that for $40 million. Well, you can, but can you catch that diving left-handed, single-handed ball in the end zone? Probably not. So, but there's been games throughout the season that we needed our quarterback to make a play, and that's where Jacoby Brissett's limited.
Yeah.
He's not going to lose games for you,
right?
but he's not really going to win a lot of games for you too.
11 weeks now, right?
I know a lot of people out there would argue
11?
it's 11, but they'd argue with me on that because his statistics are so good right now. But he doesn't have a lot of touchdown passes, and I think that's where it kind of everyone's separated. So, but our offense has not been the issue for us. The majority of the year, it's been our defense, which has been a disappointment. But
right, there's a lot to be said about the it factor, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Jacoby Brissett has the it factor. He's
limited in his ability.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard Deshaun Watson has it too.
He has it. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Shoot, what's I can't believe I forgot his name. Clemson's coach.
Dabo.
Yeah, Sweeney.
Dabo Sweeney.
Saying that he was the Michael Jordan of football.
Did he say that?
Yeah, with Watson. And I was kind of really, but we'll see. He's going to have a lot on his shoulders too. I think he's got he's going to have to prove himself to be a leader on the team. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of questions in that locker room that's going to be asked privately.
Yeah, there might be people in that locker room that do not believe in him.
Absolutely.
That are frustrated by the fact that they brought him in and he's going to now be their leader.
I guarantee there is. I guarantee there's people that are disappointed that Jacoby's not going to be the starter this week. I know that for sure.
You grow to really love those guys that you're playing with.
Well, that's what they're talking. With Zach Wilson and the Jets.
Right.
They asked him.
There was a huge difference in their demeanor. You could tell.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all because he got up and said he didn't let the defense down. And it's. But
I mean that was the straw that broke the camel's back, I think. Have you seen any of his other press conferences before that week? It's the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he flat out refused to take responsibility for anything. He did, and anytime he was asked a tough question, he just didn't answer it. It was just real short.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He may never make his way back into the starter role.
That's even Baker took blame.
Well, yeah, Baker did a good job in interviews. I mean, it's bizarre. It didn't want to take much responsibility for anything. So
I didn't know that was an ongoing issue. I mean, I heard what he said this last time.
Yeah, I think that was about it. I think that was like, okay, this is it. You're done. You're not even going to dress.
I heard Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless talk about yesterday how he did the wrong thing. He took on the New York media. They said you can't survive.
Sure, he tried to ignore them and tried not to answer their questions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Even though I agree, sometimes, actually a lot of times, those post-game press conferences are just filled with bull.
Yeah.
But you got to know that's part of the.
That's why they
job.
get we're going to take it one game at a time and
yeah, exactly.
Just keep
that?
moving forward.
Tom Brady said that from after he left New England. He told all the media guys I was just telling you, I never answered any of your questions straightforward.
Him and Bill, neither one of them did. Shoot, now he can't get him to shut up. He tells them all kinds of stuff. So, speaking of not having believers in the locker room, sometimes you have some believers and sometimes you have some that are non-believers, right? Every team's going to have believers and non-believers.
Right.
And so, like, I look at teams that are, that are even really successful, perhaps, and get to championship games. You might still have players.
Guarantee you're going to.
Yeah. That are going to enter the transfer portal, which basically means I don't believe in this.
That's true.
Right? For one reason or another. What can you do about that as a coach, as an organization? What do you do about non-believers? Because you're going to have them.
Yep, it's tough. I mean, I don't think there's it kind of leads me to Kevin Wilson saying that hitting's a conversation. I
I
think.
wore that shirt the other day.
Did you really?
Well, hitting's a conversation. I thought you were going to say hitting is simple. It's just not easy.
All right, yeah. But I think there's everyone's going to have their own philosophy and strategy and whatnot. But I think we talked about trust, and I feel like one of the things that you almost have to do, and it's actually, I mean it's not a new concept, but it's kind of been new to me as the last few years of my coaching journey here is, you have to empower ownership onto your players.
Yes.
I think, if and I think that's where you get believe. I think
If it's yours.
if it's yours,
Yeah.
you're not buying in, you're believing.
Yeah. If it belongs to me.
Yes.
This is something that belongs to me.
And that's
Yes.
tricky, to get to that level of, where you're comfortable. But I saw that, last year with my baseball team, with our baseball team. Those seniors, they set a standard.
Yeah.
And they said, this is the way we do things. And they expected everyone to follow suit. And you know what? We did have some non-believers.
Sure.
And in that situation, those non-believers don't have a negative impact on the season, on a game, because of the fact that, hey, this is ours and we're not going to let you ruin it.
Yeah.
It's easier to let that go if it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
There might be some non-believing voices out there, but those voices are a lot quieter than the believing voices in that sense.
Yep. And I would say that too from a parent perspective.
Sure. You have the same thing.
Yep.
In the stands, you got believing parents and non-believing parents.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if a kid comes home, a player comes home, and a parent asks them what they did in practice today, and they're part of that, ownership. They're part of that direction that the program's going. The answer is probably going to be a lot different than if they feel like they have no
Sure.
control, they don't enjoy what they're doing, or and things like that. So, and that's just that creates a ripple effect, and it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I think that's one part of it, in trying to figure out how to get this believe in concept that we're talking about. It's got to be theirs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I read you something that Steve Miller
Please.
wrote in his book? This is from his first book that he wrote, Coaching Like a Champion. When he's talking about believe in, he said, believe in is another reminder that we coach people, not a sport. We coach people, not a sport. And so one of the things that he did in research for his book, Coaching Like a Champion, is he conducted survey among coaches. He asked coaches questions, one question in particular, and I think he actually included, in order to get enough responses, he included other people who aren't necessarily coaches. But he wanted to really try to ask this of coaches as well, to think about other coaches that you've had in your past. And the question that he asked was, what are some of the, give me 3 or 4 qualities of the best coach you ever had? And he just had them send them to him or whatever. And he built a list of that. And so some of the responses he got were patience, promoted a positive environment, had tolerance for mistakes, provided precise and positive feedback along with the negative feedback, was encouraging, built confidence in us, cared about the development of every player, was courageous, made difficult decisions in the moment that benefited the player, not necessarily the scoreboard, showed passion for the game, was prepared, adjusted their coaching style to different personalities, trust, taught us to love effort as much as winning.
I like that one.
Yeah. Gets excited when the little things are done right. Pushed me even when I didn't want to be pushed. And then in parentheses, I appreciate that more now.
Absolutely.
Is that answer. But, I'm just going to, so I'll just go out on a limb here and guess that if you are a coach or a leader or a boss who has those qualities, maybe not even all of them, maybe just a chunk of them, some of them, you're probably going to get believe in
Yeah.
on your team. And I think that's the point as he was making is really that, I mean, if you want believe in, then maybe you should spend some time in personal development.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because none of those things talked about, what type of defense the coach believed in, or, the
system.
how they felt, shooting mechanics or, anything like that. Which it would only
Knowledge.
tackling technique.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Whether they like to bunt or not,
Yeah.
because we know that no true baseball coach bunts,
You're gonna get Nick coming up to me again saying, "See, it's always Pat that says that stuff."
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think there's a trend with that kind of stuff. We talk to college coaches. What do college coaches look at? They look at those intangibles, about the people, about the who the player is, as opposed to exactly what their statistics were. You know what I mean?
Right.
They look at that, who they are. What can they get out of them? Things like that. And I think it's rampant. I think it's so important in sports, but we really don't think about it and talk about it enough. At least not at the same ratio as we do other things.
Right.
Kind of the same as maybe mental strength, mental toughness.
Sure.
Mental capacity of a game. And then we go, we talk about how it's 90% of the game, 75% of the game, what it is. And then we go, weeks of practices without touching upon, how we're going to get mentally stronger or anything like that. So, I think it's a great question. It's a tough question. When you first brought it up to me, I was like, "Oh my, this is something that every coach should think about going into every season."
Well, yeah, it could be one of your biggest fears, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how am I going to coach this whole season if they don't believe in what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you don't talk about a tough coaching job. That's a tough coaching
Sure.
job, for sure.
So you almost have to stop and say, you almost have to backtrack a little bit and say, it doesn't matter what else we do. We've got to build a little bit of believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Coach. We
Still
write
have-
that down for the
Yeah.
spring.
We got it. Right. Well, let's do that. Let's. I didn't. I don't like necessarily bringing up abstract topics and just saying, "Oh yeah, we got to have it. We got to do this," without getting a little bit practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is like? Okay, yeah, to have belief in, you got to have trust. Okay, well, what does that look like?
Sure.
How do I do that, right?
Yep.
And so, I did a little searching, and one of my favorite. Some of my favorite emails to read are from Eric Cressy from Cressy Sports Performance.
I love Cressy.
Do you
Eric.
get his emails?
Yes.
You only get like 6 a day.
wait.
If you're signed up to
I don't think I do. I follow him on Twitter.
you would know if you do.
Yeah, I follow him on
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah,
But I get a lot of emails
you-
from my Yahoo box.
You will, if you sign up, if you subscribe to Cressy blog, his emails, blogs, things like that, they'll come in. I don't exaggerate when I say 3 a day. Probably you probably
Nice.
get 3 a day. But one of those emails, and I don't read them all. I mean, but when something catches my attention, I read it, and I remember at some point I know that he had a message about this, and he may have called it buy-in or whatever, but I remember it being really good. And I don't really ever delete these kinds of emails. And so I did a little search and I found it. And he had an article called 6 Ways to Get Buy-in, or we're going to say for the sake of our conversation today, believe in from athletes.
Good deal.
Okay. Because what he's talking about is essentially what we're talking about when we say believe in. Okay?
Sure.
The kinds of things. And so 6 things, here they are. Write them down. Number 1, deliver a consistent message. Like, do you remember when you were a kid and you wanted something that you didn't have a snowball's chance of getting, but you would go ask like your mom, and your mom would say no, and then you would also go
Oh, like a Red Ryder BB
and
gun?
ask your dad. Yes, it's that story. It's exactly that story, right? You go and ask your dad and hope that maybe you'll get a different answer, or vice versa. You ask dad first, then he gives you the no, but then you go ask mom, and you're hoping to get a different answer. Because what happens if you do get a different answer between mom and dad? Then you have that hope that you might actually get this thing that you didn't think you were going to get, right? And so and there's a there, but if you got the firm no from both of them, you knew, all right,
Yeah.
I believe you. Well, I'm not getting it, right? But there's and I think for someone to believe in something, that message has got to be consistent. And so what I mean by that is, coaches need to all be on the same page.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it goes back to my staff, your staff, our staffs. Are we all on the same page? Are we all communicating the same things? Because if we're not, now we're drilling holes in this believe-in concept.
Yep.
People they're gonna doubt us because we're not on the same page. And you know, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be varying levels of knowledge and understanding
Sure.
of the concepts that you're coaching, but we need to be speaking the same language.
Yep,
right?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And know how to deal with those things when there is varying levels.
Yes.
I think, inconsistency is a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just in sports; that's in everything.
Yeah.
If you, it's confusing and it just makes people think. And if they're thinking about things other than the direction that they're going, it's a problem.
It is.
So consistency that's a
is.
good one.
Number 2, have lots of one-on-one interactions.
Yeah. Which is tough.
It is tough.
I mean, that's you got to be intentional about it.
And it may be, it's tough. It's tougher for some coaches than for others because it may not be within your personality to do that.
Sure.
It may be, you may be more of an introverted personality where you don't necessarily,
Yeah.
go out of your way to make those one-on-one connections as much.
Yeah, one thing I did last year and I really liked, and I think I'll continue to do it, is before the season, I brought everybody on the roster in, and I talked to them about their role and about how they were going to fit in on the team and what I expected out of them, and I asked them to accept that role. And let me know if they didn't.
Yeah.
Basically, tell, hey, this is when you're gonna go apply for jobs. And just because you apply for a job doesn't mean that you're gonna want that job at the end of the day. So you have to make a decision. When you do make the decision, and I think giving them that option and saying, hey, this is what I want from you. Do you accept it?
Yeah.
There's some of that ownership, but also just talking to them on a like you said, a one-on-one level. Hey, this is what we're looking at. This is this is how you fit. There's honesty there,
Right.
I like it, and so I agree with that. Honestly, this is a head coach thing. I think it really is, because if in my mind you put assistants around you that can coach the game, and then you have the time to do things like this.
Sure.
To set aside those one-on-one interactions, because if it is tough to find it's you have to carve it out. You have to be
Right.
like I said, intentional about it, or you're not going to get it done. You're going to,
Yeah.
because there's all kinds of things that you can spend
A
a
lot of
practice doing.
administrative things that you could be doing instead.
Oh, sure, right.
Without a doubt.
Well, yeah, administrative
Yeah.
things for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Well, think about the dynamics of the difference in having the one-on-one interaction with a player versus communicating everything that you communicate to the whole group. Like for example, what happens when a coach yells at the entire team about something, perhaps something that only one or two players are at fault for, right? Like you're talking about maybe some discipline or punishment type thing. Well, the whole team wears it, right? You're all in the circle there. The whole team will wear it in the moment, but then maybe as soon as coach is out of the room, a little bit of gossip about the coach or about who he was actually talking about, things like that, right? And they may just shrug it off afterwards. It may not the point may have been made in the moment, but what good comes from it?
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's contrast that then. Let's go back to this point of one-on-one interactions.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead of that, we actually dealt with things that were problems one-on-one?
Right.
You pulled that player aside and you explained to him individually his conduct, his attitude, his effort that you found disappointing, and usually that will turn out to be a kick in the pants for that individual, and there will be some change at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about negative stuff too. I'm talking about positive stuff.
Sure,
like the things you were
absolutely.
talking about were positive things.
Yes.
But on a negative sense, one-on-one is pretty helpful as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think you got to be good at it.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely it's not something that is easy. You
No.
said people don't have that personality to do it.
Right.
You got to work at it, and you got to understand how you're relating to that player, because you're not going to relate to every player the same. You're not going to be able to
Exactly.
talk to them the same. So
That's actually point number 3.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, it is. It's just individualizing your coaching for each individual athlete's learning style. It sort of takes point number 2 even deeper.
Yep. And that's again, that's the further I go into my coaching career, in quotes there, the more I'm understanding that it's less about the X's and O's of the game and more about, and that's why Dusty Baker is such a good manager.
I think so too.
And that's why the Reds were so crazy to get rid of him, because it wasn't about like what happened, the decisions that he was making during the games. It's about what he was doing in the clubhouse.
And that's impossible for you and I to see from the stands.
Right.
But when you have so much fan influence, I guess, over decisions sometimes in professional sports, people don't see that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
And
back
you
when
don't
Dusty
see it
was the coach.
at lower levels either. You don't.
No, you really. Yeah, that's true. You really
can't.
don't. Yeah.
At the high school level, most practices are closed. Parents aren't in there, so you don't see the interaction between the coach and the player there either.
You mean people who post on forums and things and Twitter don't see what you're doing in your practice and see how much you and your players love each other?
I not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that surprising?
Right.
We should reach out to Matt Ash and tell him to put a disclaimer on Southeastern Iowa Preps that these are not opinions coming from practices.
Yeah,
inside
right.
the locker room.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. Yeah, any type of forum conversation is, you got to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to that kind
but
of stuff.
But they're fun. They're entertaining. They give people
I
things
guess.
to do. So.
Yeah. That's one way to put it.
And there's a lot of good conversation that goes on in those forums. As well, so.
Number 4, over deliver. Again, this is Eric Cressy's 6 ways to get believe in. Over deliver.
Interesting.
So
what's he talking about delivering?
Do more than necessary.
Yeah.
So from his end, from his perspective, Eric Cressy is a personal trainer. He trains a lot of professional athletes, a lot of baseball players. He focuses a lot of his training and his communication on baseball, but he trains all sorts of athletes. And by the way, his favorite lift is the deadlift.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, he's not a huge guy, but man, that son of a gun can deadlift. Hey, I don't know how many pounds it is. It's a lot of pounds. It's a lot of weight. It's a lot
I don't
of
think I've ever seen him deadlift.
Yeah. But anyway, from their standpoint, like they do extra things for their people that they train, like things that they don't have to do, but like they'll have barbecues, things like that, and go out of their way to do. Well, this very blog is an example. He doesn't have to do. This is all free. All these emails and blogs that he sends out to people, like I'm not training with it. I haven't sent him anything. I haven't bought anything from him.
Right.
But I'm benefiting from him.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
So he's over delivering.
Sure.
And so I think of coaches who intentionally, you want to do youth camps, right? Whether you make any money for it or not.
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Definitely.
Do you have to do that? No, you don't have to.
Right.
Right. I think if you want to have a successful program, you have to. But all in all, you don't have to.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
Basically, you're doing a lot of things that quote unquote aren't your responsibility. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what over delivering is. It's going out of your way to going above and beyond for your team and doing things that you're not expected to do, but you're just happy to do.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
I think when people see that, I think that sends an underlying message to your team. I mean, this isn't just what I think. I mean, I agree. I agree with Eric Cressy here that I think that there's a way that could send an underlying message of, boy, this person really cares. This coach really cares about what we're doing.
And not only that, but would you say it shows that from a coaching perspective, we believe in what we're doing?
Absolutely.
And it's hard to believe in something that somebody is showing you if they don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So it helps away in that
For
that
sure.
regard too.
Number 5, and you've actually mentioned this one earlier in the show, delegate tasks, or you talked about it in a sense. So basically, let coaches coach.
Yep, absolutely.
I think this shows that you, as a head coach, you're not a know-it-all. It's not a my way or the highway type thing, And I think if you want to get believe in from your players, if you're going to have believe in from your coaches.
Yeah.
And so if your coaches know that you trust them to coach, they're going to believe in your program.
Sure.
And then and it's going to tighten up that consistency that you guys say that you want to have too.
Yeah, I think the goal of every head coach is to surround themselves with people that know more about the game than they do.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult task because, like high school coaching is it's hard to find people that have the time, that are able and then willing to to serve in that role.
Right.
But if you could have 4 coaches that were better coaches than you, you'd be in a pretty good spot as a head coach.
No doubt. What is it? What coach said? We know a lot more than me. Or there's a quote that's something like that. That together, we know a lot more than any one of us individually.
That the we over me.
That's the yeah.
We with the greater.
Yeah, I don't remember what the quote is. I might have to look that up. But anyway, we're almost approaching an hour. So here we go. Number 6. Number 6. Be available and accessible. So these are Eric Cressy's 6 ways to get buy-in, believe in from your team members, and that is number 6: be available and accessible. So don't just have a punch the clock mindset when it comes to your coaching. Send messages, emails, chat. Be a person who connects with athletes outside of your sport. Outside of I mentioned that's something that you do really well. Seeing you go to their events and things like that over the years. Just be a fan. Just this is this for me. You and I have talked about this before. You got to be careful, especially coaching high school kids. Sending messages, individual messages to one kid at a time. Listen, I'll tell you right now, I've changed my mind on that. I send messages to kids one at a time. Because I see there's something that feels different when you get a personal message from your coach, right? Now you got to be somebody with integrity to be able to do that. You got to be somebody, I think, and I actually had our superintendent actually said that to me. He said, "Look, I message kids all the time." He said that's how they communicate. That's how he said if you're somebody that has integrity, if you don't have integrity, if you don't have character, it's going to come out. You're going to get caught.
Yeah.
And it's going to be. But the problem is, you hurt people in doing that if you're somebody like that as well.
Sure.
So it's tough to say I'm okay with everybody doing that, but there's so much benefit. I think sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater because we see the harm that something could do, and we say, well, therefore no one can do it. But I know that when I message a player individually or something like that, there's zero ill intent.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it is. It's a conversation definitely to be had, and I think that will continue to be had in the next 10 to 20 years just because of the way life is changing. How electronics, digital communication is becoming so prevalent in our lives, and that's we're kind of at a crossroads now where we have a few generations that have no concept of that, and then a few generations that only have that concept. And I think those are going to clash for a little while until we figure that out. But I think just to say, as far as being available and accessible, that's just a way to show these kids that you do care about them on a level that's beyond sports,
right?
And it builds that relationship, and it makes them more willing to come in and to have trust into what you say to them and the visions that you have and so on and so forth. So Cressy's got some good stuff there. It's good stuff. None of it involved sport knowledge either.
No, it didn't.
So we've talked a lot about what is such an important factor, such an important part of our sports programs, and it didn't have anything to do with using equipment or how we swing or how we pitch or anything like that. So I think that's an important thing to take away from the conversation today is coaching has a lot of nooks and crannies that people like you and I that desire to fill that role. We need to investigate. We need to think about maybe more so than we have in the past. I think the better coaches, the legendary coaches, were ahead in things like this.
Sure.
They're just the social media wasn't there.
Didn't have it all written down.
Didn't have it all written down.
Yeah.
But they were real good at things like this, and those were the types of coaches that are in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So that people remember all the time because they understood these things that we're talking about on a level that other coaches didn't understand. So
yeah,
it's good stuff.
When you hear somebody speak of a coach and they say that every player on that team would run through a brick wall for that coach, that's what they mean. They've got to
exactly
believe
right. Yeah,
that team, and that as you said, that there are lots of people throughout the years that have been able to have that, and have that experience before there was a podcast talking about how to do it.
Right. Before the coaching life came around and was giving everyone all the answers.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah.
well, good talk today, Coach.
It was very nice.
Yeah, maybe we'll have since everyone turned us off already, maybe we'll have a guest next time we come on.
There you go. Hopefully, maybe we'll grab one of those champions, one of those MAC champions.
There we go. Yeah, it's coming. It's happening.
Right. Good luck. Good luck to OU.
Go Bobcats.
Go beat Toledo. That's right.